So today we're very fortunate to have Mr. Yitai Hu, his partner with Elston and Bird law firm based in California, and you're based in Silicon Valley. Welcome.
Thank you.
And a few words about Mr. Hu. He is an internationally recognized IP intellectual property litigator and practitioner, and also he's one of the top 75 leading IP litigators in California by San Francisco Daily Journal in 2011.
Yes.
Why don't you start with giving us a broad picture of the legal aspects in this country and how much our Chinese investments or Chinese investors know about this?
Well, I think fundamentally the way business is conducted in China is very different from the way it is conducted here. I think in China you can set up operations and the mentality is let's start selling the products first. But in the US, it's very much you need to first understand what laws are there, what regulations are there, and this is complicated by the fact that in the US there's federal laws, and among the 50 different states, they have their own laws that may influence various aspects of how the products can be manufactured.
We have seen actually for the past years an increasing number of Chinese investment here in the States. Chinese investors, both we say SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, and the private ones are getting, as people put, more sophisticated. But why? Your expertise is the IP intellectual property law. Why do you think the IP laws matter so much to the Chinese investors?
Because the U.S. very much protects its intellectual property rights. Mm-hmm. This is something that the United States is very proud of. In many negotiations with the rest of the world, the U.S. required other countries to afford the same type of protection on intellectual property rights as to the various U.S. courts and the states. So that is very, very important. So the unfortunate thing is the perception of the U.S. public of the Chinese product is that they couldn't possibly be any innovation from China. They all copied from the U.S. or from Japan. Therefore, anything that's sold in the U.S. must be copied from somebody. So that is a very, very difficult perception to overcome. And that is exacerbated by the fact that when the U.S. economy is not doing well, the anti-foreign sentiment increases.
And you mentioned politics. How much exactly does politics have the influence of setting up these laws in different states?
As you may recall, when Lenovo purchased the notebook division of IBM, the U.S. government was a large purchaser and user of IBM computers. But once Lenovo purchased the IBM's the notebook division, rumors started in the Capitol Hills that, hey, should the U.S. government or the military rely on products that are made by the Chinese company? Somebody even intimated the fact that, hey, you don't know, maybe the Lenovo will put in spyware in the computers that will be used by the U.S. military and the government. Therefore, the U.S. government and the military should walk away and should start purchasing other U.S. branded computers. That is totally unfounded because, at least for Lenovo, at the beginning, the notebook division stayed fairly independent. At least the U.S. part still remained part of the company, but it was still a very independent operation.
What do you think the Chinese investors should bear in mind when they make their investment decisions here in the U.S. in terms of the legal aspects? Any advice for them?
Yes. And that is, do not compare the practice in China with the practice in the U.S. They're very, very different. In my discussions with my clients, a lot of the times they don't understand why they're getting into trouble in the U.S. because they will say, well, this is perfectly acceptable in China, and have to remind them, yes, but you're not in China anymore.
although there is an increasing sort of number of Chinese investments here in the States, the number last year, 2011, the total Chinese investment here in the States, I think, was 4.5 billion. That sounds a big number, but it's only about 2% of the whole Chinese foreign direct investments overseas. So that's still like small volume.
Right.
And I know there are other aspects, but just let's focus on the law aspects. What do you think, how do you think the law regulations here could play a role in this?
It is a huge factor. I know some of my clients decided not to come into the U.S. or pull out of the U.S. precisely because they couldn't deal with all the different laws and regulations they must comply. A lot of the companies, some of my clients, they're not willing to make that adjustment because economically it's not feasible for them to say, well, so that I can sell my products throughout the U.S., I have to make sure that they comply with all the laws and regulations of every single state, to which they have no control. Once their products come into the U.S., that product can be sold anywhere in the U.S. Sometimes these laws and regulations become a deterrent for a lot of the Chinese companies, to do business in the U.S.
Right. We've talked about so much about the barriers, if you like, problems. So hope that is not all gloomy. In the midst of all this, any silver lining?
Well, the silver lining is this, that at least on the electronic industry, the U.S. is essentially becoming a designer and seller of these products. They're not making anything anymore. Apple doesn't make anything anymore. Apple designs very, very good products. They don't make anything. And they're all made in large part in Asia and in China.
Right.
So there's business opportunities to be had, without a doubt. That's why these companies, the Chinese companies, are coming into the U.S. It's just that they need to understand that there are laws that they need to understand and follow.
So that's just a process these investors need to go through and get comfortable with so that they can carry on their further investment decisions.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.